Welcome, everyone. I was watching the snow and was deciding on snow day. But instead, I decided to announce that even better than a snow day, we're having a cake cutting ceremony just as soon as we're done with this presentation. So with no further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral John Richardson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope you get full credit for this course, because I know it's a big chunk out of your day, and everybody is kind of looking at the weather outside. We're pretty safe. My whole traveling party will just go to Admiral Harley's house if we get stuck here, so he's really watching the weather, right? Hey, I'll tell you, it's an exciting time to be here, and a lot of people are here right now, and I thought just to sort of warm up together, we could take some time to recognize just a few of the group. First of all, the first thing I did when I arrived here is I had a chance to spend a terrific hour talking with the Board of Advisors. And so this is as you would imagine, a group of extremely, supremely qualified people that help us think about the future of the Naval War College and the Naval Postgraduate School, our flagship institutions. And so it was just such an invigorating conversation that I wanted, and some of them are here today. If the Board of Advisors could please stand up if you're around still, maybe here we go. Just a couple stand the watch for the rest of the team. Let's give them a round of applause. And then this place has so many treasures, and one of the treasures that I rely on heavily is a team of CNO International Fellows. And I will tell you, I was, as usual, I was slow to realize the full potential and just the wonderful contribution that these international fellows make, certainly to the college here. And for those of you who have had a chance to spend time with them, I know you've benefited directly from their instruction, their perspective, their experience. But I'll tell you, as exercising my responsibilities as the Chief of Naval Operations, both domestically and absolutely internationally, it's been just terrific to work with the International Fellows. So, sirs, if you would please just stand up, give the International Fellows just a tremendous round of applause. Thank you. And then finally, I think whether we crash at his house tonight could not be better led than by Admiral Harley. So, sir, thank you very much for everything you do to move this college forward intellectually, kinetically, materially, from every aspect. It's just alive and vibrant, and that's a reflection of your leadership. So give the president a round of applause. He never gets enough recognition. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about leadership. And, the big sign right outside the door is, educating leaders. And so I'm here to do sort of two things to focus our discussion about leadership. One is we're going to formally recognize the opening of the College of Leadership and Ethics. And we have the faculty of that college here amongst us. And so I'd ask that team to stand up if I could. Dean Klein and your team, stand up. Be recognized. The faculty of the College of Leadership and Ethics. Yeah. All right. And then, very, very closely aligned is today we're launching the Leadership Development Framework version 2. Which is exciting for a number of reasons. One is that it has stuff in it that version 1 didn't have, and we'll talk about that. But the other thing is that there is this idea of version 2, right? And the thinking behind it is that it's a quick step. The version 1 just came out a little more than a year ago, right? And you know how it goes with these things. Almost as soon as you've turned in your paper, your thesis, right, you read something the very next day that says, shoot, I wish I would have known that, and I would have included it in my essay. But you just sort of keep track of those things, and that's what we did here. This isn't a complete rewrite, and we don't want it to be a tremendous, intellectual thing, but it is a slight update. And so it was easy to put together. It's light on its feet. We anticipated this because when we put the first one out, we said, 1.0, and kind of implying that in the future there would be an update, a version 2.0. And so just from both the intellectual differences between 1.0 and 2.0, but also the fact that we're doing this fast iteration, which is, I think, the key to keeping pace with up to our theoretical potential. For a lot of reasons, I'm excited about this version 2 of the Leader Development Framework. And I'll tell you, it stems, just to give you a sense for where it stands in my priorities, it is right at the very top. And it stems, it comes directly out of the design for maintaining maritime superiority. And if you think about the end state that's described in that design, that operational design, it goes right towards describing, our end state is a Navy that is formed of leaders and teams that will work together to learn faster than our competitors, to reach and maintain performance near our theoretical limits. Right? Leaders and teams contained in that end state. And so that's at sort of the very highest level of operational guidance. And then, just below that, there's a small family of frameworks, and this leader development framework is a very important part of that. If the idea of leaders and teams learning faster than the competition wasn't important before, it's been made even more clear. Our thinking is even more sharp by virtue of the national security strategy and the national defense strategy, which highlight in clear terms that we are back in an era of competition, great power competition, right? Meaningful competition, perhaps existential competition. And these are competitions, we have to win, all right? We have to win these competitions. And so we'll talk through all of that. I'm going to quickly highlight the structure of the leader development framework. I want to put a little bit of a spotlight on what's different between versions 1 and 2. We'll swing back and talk about the importance of the College of Leadership and Ethics in building winning leaders. And then I just want to warn you, the best part of the afternoon together is going to be the conversation that we'll have after I stop talking. Okay? And so think of hard questions now, and let me have those questions at the end of this quick talk. Okay? Fair enough rules of engagement? Okay, let's get started. The leader development framework, this is the only thing I really want to read, starts with, in this era of competition. And naval combat makes this very, very clear. If you think about competition in a naval combat sense, it's very much like competition in an exponential digital world, right? There are winners, and that's all that matters, right? Nobody's given a whole lot of thought to number 2, okay? And that's exactly the way it is with naval combat, isn't it? Right? If you look over your history, in naval combat, the winners sail away and the losers sink to the bottom. That's the way it is. Okay? And so this idea of winners, or leaders who will win in this competition is absolutely essential. We are not here to make everybody feel good. That's not the end. The end is winning. And so the one goal that centers our thinking in the leader development framework is, and the framework asks you to think about those qualities of those leaders that you most admire, right? Those ones that win persistently and consistently over and over. Top leaders inspire their teams to perform at or near their theoretical limits. And by making their team stronger, they relentlessly chase best ever performance. They study every text, try every method, seize every moment, and expend every effort to outfox their competition. They ceaselessly communicate, train, test, and challenge their teams. They are toughest on themselves. They routinely seek feedback and are ready to be shown their errors in the interest of learning and getting better. And when they win, they are grateful, humble, and spent from their effort. And by doing all of these things, great leaders bring their teams to a deeply shared commitment to each other and the pursuit of victory. Okay? This idea, you can't go past that into methodologies and everything else until you stop and center on the purpose of our being here is to be winning leaders. All right? So that's the one goal. Now, why don't we go to the next slide? Okay, go back real quick, just if you can. Let's just appreciate this picture as just, one very, very important aspect of naval combat. This is the view one might experience looking at a periscope, approaching periscope depth. And so I just wanted to stop there, bring you all into this before we move forward. All right, now you can build. All right, so the one goal, right? Winning, performing at our theoretical limits to win. Oftentimes as leaders, I think that we really don't set those theoretical performance limit goals. We sell our team short by defining a goal that is too easy to reach. We don't challenge them enough, okay? So it's a big part about leadership. Where are you setting your goals? And I would encourage you to think big, right? Okay, next. There's sort of two lanes to reach that. If that's the objective, the destination for leadership, there's sort of two lanes on the road to get you there. One lane is competence. We have got to know our business, right? We will never be effective unless we know what we are doing, the art and science of our jobs. And no matter how sincere you are, unless you know right from wrong, right, goodness from badness in the technical competencies, the warfighting competencies, the operational competencies, you will just stand there and look sincere. And the situation could be collapsing around you, and you just may not know it, right? And we expect so much more than that. We expect you to see those signs very, very early and take action to prevent those problems from happening rather than, in addition to, responding to them when they happen. Okay, so there is a great deal of importance on competence. But there's also a tremendous amount of importance that goes to character and character development. Are our leaders, we want to build leaders that are the types of people that we would welcome to be out in front of our sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines, civilians, out in front leading. These are the people that we would be welcome to have lead our sons and daughters, right? Our own, just as we would want them to lead America's sons and daughters, okay? And that takes character, right? We want these people to be people of character, ethically sound, okay? And it is the combination of these two things, of competence and character, that will lead us to trust and confidence, okay? A leader who has demonstrated competence and character that's a leader that inspires trust and confidence. And trust and confidence, that's the coin of the realm for us, right? It all falls apart without trust and confidence. Trust and confidence between us and the American people that we have chosen to defend. Trust and confidence up and down the chain of command in our all-volunteer force, right? If those bonds of trust and confidence are broken, then that's the first step towards this thing kind of collapsing on itself, all right? So competence and character lead to trust and confidence. That's the coin of the realm, and are the essential ingredients to any kind of delegation, right? You're not going to delegate a task to a subordinate commander or leader in whom you don't have trust and confidence, are you? You've got to have those two elements in place. Okay, so those are the two lanes that will get you toward this one goal. And we're also lucky in the Navy because we have sort of three motive forces to get us down that path. Go ahead and build. Okay, so you're here in one of our premier schools. So one way you can develop yourself in both competence and character is by going to school. And we have a lot of schools for both warfighting skills, right, learning our job, and we have more and more schools that will teach us and build our character, strengthen our character. The College of Leadership and Ethics is a bright star in that constellation. Maybe our new Polaris in the constellation of schools that help us develop character, okay? So we have formal schools. Just as important as formal schools, we have on-the-job training, all right? When you go out to your commands, and this on-the-job training takes many forms, right? There's watch qualification, isn't there? Okay? There's rating learning that goes on. There's advancement exams. There's all of those sorts of things where you learn your job while doing your job, right? And you get increasingly qualified for more and more senior watches. You get bigger and bigger teams. You get promoted. All of those things happen in your operational commands. And so there's a lot of on-the-job learning that goes on. A lot of on-the-job leadership that goes on, that over-the-shoulder leadership that allows you to guide your teams through that. And so particularly in competence, there's a lot. In fact, when you think about that, you primarily think of the operational competence part of leadership when you think on-the-job training. One of the things that we're asking the College of Leadership and Ethics to do is to better inform us and allow us to also use operational on-the-job training for character building, okay? And this brings it all home. I think this is a very, very important part of our development because alternatively, that character stuff, that ethics stuff becomes just an academic exercise. And it's great, that I come up to Newport and I learn about Plato and Aristotle and, the rest. But hey, once I get down to the waterfront, I know how life really goes. We can't have that duality in our lives. It's got to be one whole cloth, right? And so if we are, the sum of what we do, a very Aristotelian type of an approach, what we do on the deck plate matters from a character standpoint. And we get a lot of challenges to our character out there as we ask you to do more things, as you may get fatigued, et cetera. There are a lot of ethical and character challenges. We want to make sure that we're building your strength to meet those challenges head on. All right? So there's schools, there's on the job. Third method is just self-learning, okay? And so think of those leaders. It kind of goes back to the qualities of those leaders that you admire, right? Every one of those was a self-learner. Not just a self-learner, but, a rabid self-learner, They could not be stopped from learning. They were not waiting around for the next school or the next qualification. They were never satisfied just to learn their job. They wanted to learn their peers' jobs, their subordinates' jobs, their bosses' jobs. They were insatiable learners, right? They got into that statement. They studied every text, always thinking about outboxing the enemy. And you've been around some of those leaders, haven't you? And it's almost exhausting to be around them, isn't it? Because they're constantly challenging you, right? Putting you in the scenario. What do you do? You know, here you are. What do you do next? And it's like, gosh dang, I'm in the chow line, for crying out loud. I'm just trying to get some lunch, and I'm getting this, I'm getting pummeled by these leadership challenges. But this is what these winning leaders do. They're consumed and obsessed with winning and building their teams. And I'll tell you, they build them in a sustainable way too, right? Because they know this is not a one-fight thing. We've got to win today, got to win next week, and the week after that, right? So you've got to build a team that gets stronger over time. You can't drive them down to bare metal for one fight. It's not going to work. Okay? So you start to see the structure of the leader development framework. It centers on that one goal, winning teams performing at their theoretical limits of performance. Okay? 2 paths towards that goal, right? 2 lanes, competence and character, and then 3 ways to move down that road: schools, on the job, and self-learning. Okay, so that was resident in Leader Development Framework 1.0 and remains in version 2.0. But what's new about version 2? Let's take a look. Next slide. There we are again, approaching periscope depth. And so we'll go ahead and build. Okay, one is this is not necessarily new, but we included it in the Leader Development Framework, which is a statement of the importance of not only diversity, but inclusion of that diversity in terms of building winning teams, okay? And one thing that has become very, very clear to me, the more senior I get, the more clear it's become, is how many blind spots we all have. I have, okay? And that realization has just become more crystal clear the more senior I've gotten and the more complicated the problems have become, okay? And so what's one way to try and overcome these blind spots? And these blind spots are born by, the term of art is unconscious bias, right? We all have biases just by virtue of the way we were raised, our experiences. And even the science, in fact, there's a couple of Nobel Prize winners who won their prizes based on studying these unconscious biases and how impossible they are to overcome, right? And they're so impossible that I could sort of tell you, okay, I'm going to sit you down here, Emma Harley, and I'm going to ask you a series of 3 questions. And I want you to know, before I ask the questions, that I'm going to play on your unconscious bias here. These questions are going to challenge your unconscious bias. So please be aware of your unconscious bias as I ask you these questions, all right? Okay. And then I ask the questions, and even with all of that warning, your unconscious bias will lead you to get the wrong answer. Okay? It's been proven in the labs. This is not just me talking, right? And so to get a Nobel Prize, you got a lot of people checking your homework, okay? And so this is the power of these things. Even if you're aware of them, they act in ways that you can't anticipate and have a very difficult time overcoming completely. So you've got to surround yourself with people who have different experiences, right? They have different unconscious biases. And together, what you can do is you can kind of, as a team, shine spotlights into each other's blind spots. And as a team, if you include all of that diversity, the net of that is a much richer, more balanced, more effective solution. Okay? And you've got to be deliberate about that, right? This doesn't just boil up. You've got to check your team out and say, is this truly a diverse team, and am I bringing all of that diversity into my decision-making process, my solution generation process? Okay, that you can be deliberate about, asking yourself those questions. And the results will be much, much richer, much more effective. They will be winning results. You will beat your competition because you have fewer vulnerabilities in your plan that arise from these blind spots, okay? So it's an important part of leader development to make sure that you are building diversity on your team and including it, okay? Okay, let's build. So that's one thing that's different in version 2. Another thing that's different in version 2, and this is one of those ideas that I talked about where the ink wasn't even dry on version 1, and I heard this idea of advocacy. I was like, dang it, I wish I could have a week back, and I would have put it in version 1. But this, the first version talked about the importance of mentoring. And the new version 2 has a section about shared commitment. And how many people in here have a mentor? Raise your hands. Okay. How many people in here are a mentor? Okay, I would raise my hands both times too, right? How many people in here have more than one mentor? Yeah, I'm there, okay? And how many people, I'm sure just about everybody who is a mentor is mentoring more than one person, right? How many people have many proteges or mentees? Okay, all right, so that's a shared commitment, right? This mentoring business, right? You've got skin in the game. Whether you are being mentored or mentored, there's this shared commitment to one another, isn't there? I can teach you all day, and as a teacher, I'll be interested in what you learn and that sort of thing. I can coach you, right, until the sun comes down, but there's a further commitment in mentoring. Then there's this idea of advocacy, which goes further still. Okay, so mentoring it's a shared commitment, but it's kind of a personal thing, between you and your mentor or between you and your protege. Advocacy now takes that and goes public, okay? And so as an advocate now, you've got your radar up and rotating, scanning the horizon for opportunities for your proteges. All right, job openings. This department head assignment on that ship. This command master chief assignment on that particular command. This faculty position opens up. This position on that staff opens up. And you're like, you know what? That would be the perfect assignment for one of my proteges. And you pick up the phone and you call the person who's going to make that choice. And you say, I got the perfect person for you, right? It's Peg Klein. This is the person you want on your team, and let me tell you why. I've served with her a number of years. Every time I've been with her, it's been impressive. She has particular skilled experience in this area. This is the person you want on your team, all right? That's advocacy. It's going public, right? It's a different level of commitment. Bring these two ideas together, right? As I said, who is in your posse of proteges, okay? If they all look like you and have the same experiences as you, there's this whole idea of reciprocal mentoring. The relationship is just not as rich as if you have, developed a diverse set of proteges. You look through that group and you see a lot of different experiences, faces, upbringings, ethnicities, whatever, okay? Another deliberate step you can take, right? This is how you save yourself from your own unconscious bias. Similarly, if you have more than one mentor, right? Does your constellation of mentors look diverse? Okay? This is how this happens. And then when you advocate for those people, almost by extension, you're creating diversity, you're creating better solutions, richer teams throughout the Navy. Okay? So these two ideas are, they're powerful individually. They're even more powerful when you let them resonate together. Okay, finally, we go one last build. There's this idea of command. Okay, we had a terrific conversation at lunch with the faculty about the unique idea, concept of command, particularly naval command. And we have tremendous confidence that all of our commanding officers are going to embrace the tremendous responsibility that we give them for the responsibility of their ship and crew. And they're going to take that team and they're going to go over the horizon and they're going to get minimal oversight. And they're going to bring that team back months later, and that team will be stronger in every way than when they left. All right? They will gain strength over the course of their operational time together. Completely unsupervised. It will be a team that gets strong on their own. All right? That can't happen without trust and confidence. And that can't happen without competence and character. Okay, so you can see how these all come to a laser-like focus at command. All right? We need to be a Navy, we need to be a military that absolutely embraces and celebrates command in every aspect, in every one of our communities throughout our Navy. All right? And so to highlight that, on the inside front cover of Leader Development Framework 2.0 is a charge of command, which talks about how important this is. And most of that charge of command is not original wording. Most of it comes from Navy regulations and public law. All right? And that's an eye-opening thing in and of itself. Okay, just to see these ideas of command embedded in some of the highest legal documents of the land. United States law, public code, okay? And so these are the new things that kind of came together and I said, you know what, there's enough here. It's time to get these out. And so we pushed out Leader Development Framework 2.0. So that launches today. And like every good thing, it's available online somewhere. There is a website at which you can reach this. And there's a public announcement that has the link to that when you want to pull it down. Okay, now let's go back to the second purpose for our time together, which is to formally recognize the opening of the College of Leadership and Ethics. And this is a monstrous step forward on that in terms of strengthening that lane that addresses character development, okay? And this college, led by Dean Klein with this faculty, is going to, they're just going to turbocharge that across the Navy. Not only in our schools, but also here, our command schools, our leadership schools, but also in all of our on-the-job training, right? They're going to provide some structure there. Just enough structure so that you can have some good ideas to tailor it to your specific situation there at sea in your command. All right, they're going to provide that for an enlisted continuum, right? As we work from recruit all the way to Fleet Master Chief, MCPON levels of leadership, and they're going to work that for officer career path as well, okay? But for all three of those motive forces, schools, on the job, and self-learning, provide you a lot of ideas and thinking to help us move down that character lane, okay? And so this is exactly the place for that here in Newport, all right? So it's terrific that as all of our leaders go through here, they're going to have an opportunity to spend time developing and strengthening their character in the College of Leadership and Ethics, and then they're going to take that out and operationalize it at sea, all right, in the fleet. And so that's a big deal, and after we have our conversation together, we'll go out and do that, and then it's so important we're going to have a cake, okay? That's it. That's the true measure of something epic, is we have a cake for it, okay? So listen, thanks very much for our time together. Thanks for listening to me up to this point. And just as I warned you, the most interesting part is still yet to come, because we're going to get some insight into what's in your mind and answer your questions. So who's got the first one? Sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Lieutenant Commander Dan Vergitz, Navy Surface Warfare Officer. Over the last 6 months or so in our country, there's been an awakening and an awareness to sexual misconduct, and it's exposed several members of our government for their lack of character. The Navy has not always had the greatest reputation with sexual misconduct, including all forms, everything from maybe pornography in the workplace all the way to sexual assault. Do you think that the Navy is doing enough to address sexual misconduct? And if not, what do you think we could do to address it further?
Okay. It's kind of a trick question. Are we doing enough, right? Until we get this down to zero, then there's still more to be done, okay? And there's sort of a full court press, I believe, in terms of getting this to zero. First of all, in those regrettable times when it does happen, we have to have the mechanisms in place to deal with that. And that means that we have to have systems in place to help the survivors, and we have to have systems in place to get after the perpetrators, okay? And so we've been making steady progress there. I will tell you that that's, managing when this happens. What we really want to do is eliminate it. And I will tell you that I see it as sort of an insider threat type of a problem. This is us destroying ourselves, okay? This is a toxic event that erodes and corrodes trust and confidence on our own team, right? That just weakens ourselves. That makes us less combat effective, okay? So this is, a front and center matter for me. Where our center of gravity for this has centered up on is in small units, okay? Divisions, platoons, small unit leadership, and at that scale is the absolute key towards getting this done. And we've done a number of focus groups. I've done a bunch of them personally. And it's very clear, the message that I get from those focus groups, and they're our most junior sailors and officers, men and women together, separate. We've taken a lot of different projections on this. One consistent thing. One is we've got work to do. There's a 100% correlation that we've got work to do. Two is if those sailors bring a problem to their commanding officers, their command master chief, their executive officer, department head, they say almost 100% of the time, good things will happen, they'll get the right answer. So senior leadership, got that. Not so clear about junior leadership, work center supervisors, leading petty officers, chiefs, junior officers. But that's where these things are solved, right? That's where we're putting the onus of responsibility. And because you spend the most time together, you see all the leading signs, you are in your workspaces, you see all those behaviors that may lead up to something or contribute to a climate or a microclimate in your division that would lead to this type of an event later on. And so that's where our center of gravity is. And we just go towards the importance of combat effective teams, right? And trust and confidence. We're different than any other organization in that regard because our lives are going to depend on our teammates. Success and failure, life and death, winning and losing. We're sort of seeing that that's having an effect, a positive effect. And so by many of the measures that we use to characterize our progress here, those are trending in the right direction, sometimes at a pretty good clip, okay? So long answer to your question, we've got more work to do. The word is, I think, pretty clearly understood, and it looks like that the way at which we're getting at this is showing some progress, and so we're going to continue to emphasize the importance of small unit leadership in driving this to zero. Okay? All right. Who's got the next question? Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Jim Peltz, Department of Energy. I'm curious as to your first slide talking about sort of the objective for the 2.0, which was also relevant in 1.0, apparently.
It's the same. Didn't change that.
Yeah, the win part.
Yeah.
I guess from an engineering mindset, just because you're wanting to perform at theoretical limits doesn't always translate into optimal. And I'm wondering, what do you mean by win?
Okay.
If you could speak a little bit more about that, that would maybe make me understand the rest of the process.
Okay. What's your background?
Mechanical engineering.
Yeah, okay. Was that a surprise to anybody? I'm a physicist and an electrical engineer, so theoretical limit of performance, I think, let's not try and read too much detail into this in terms of the difference between that and optimal levels of performance. And when you know from your engineering background, every time you bring the word optimize into the equation, you're optimizing against a set of criteria, aren't you? Right? And those criteria are really the important things. Okay? So if I optimize my system against achieving the lowest state of energy, that's going to be much different than a system that's optimized towards achieving, the highest density of energy. Okay? So optimization is a tricky thing when you say optimal. But let's not get too complicated. In a fight, the winner is the guy who wins and walks away, right? And the loser is the guy who sinks. Okay? Is that fair enough? Now, I do want to get to this idea. Embedded in this is a sense, or there's two important things that I think as sophisticated thinkers, it's important to not oversimplify, okay? One is this idea of sustainability, okay? It kind of, if you go back to the design for maintaining maritime superiority, there's this idea of instilling a sense of toughness in our teams. Toughness, not only the resilience to maybe take a blow, but the toughness to come back from that experience and prevail, okay? And, you can distort toughness, and you can make that, again, just like sexual assault, you can make that self-destructive, right? If you overtrain, if we start hurting ourselves in the name of toughness, okay? Not good, not optimal. So that's one idea. We want to be, like a strength coach toughness. Stress, relax, recover, stronger over time. That's how we build toughness. The other idea is this idea of continuous learning, okay? And so that's the asymptotic, I'm going to use some engineering terms with you, asymptotic approach towards theoretical limits, okay? And so we want to be, and the key to that is kind of constant conversations and feedback, okay? Trying something, measuring against our expectations, figuring out how we could do better, feeding that back and trying again, okay? So those are the two ideas that are kind of implicitly embedded in that statement of the goal, okay? Is that fair enough? All right, okay, thanks. Right here, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Blankenbaker, family nurse practitioner. I'm interested in hearing more of your thoughts in terms of the interplay between the College of Leadership and Ethics and the Naval War College itself. How do you see the two working together? Is it now an option to do either or do you see that they're going to be integrated?
I think they're completely integrated. I'm riffing off the president up here, but it's kind of part of the Naval War College. It's not a separate and distinct thing. And so I see this as, completely a part of the Naval War College community and experience. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sir David Cooper, a member of the faculty, thanks so much for being with us. I just wanted to pull on that thread and ask a question on the concept of mentoring to advocacy. And in particular, how do you prevent that from becoming an enabler of that ancient enemy of fairness and diversity, the Old Boys Network, and particularly to the extent that advocacy can be downward, even undue demand.
Yeah.
And obviously, the goal is very worthy. But once you're advocating...
Lofty, it's a lofty goal.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I'll tell you that this kind of goes back to that idea of unconscious bias, right? So even with the best of intentions, left to its own devices, we're going to go back to where we're comfortable. Our muscle memory takes us. So that's why, a lot of times, there's a cool book written by one of the Nobel Prize winners called Nudge. Okay, and there's another one called Thinking Fast and Slow by Dr. Kahneman. And in those books, when they talk about trying to overcome these biases, in our judgment, they say, well, put a little kind of an algorithm in place. Okay, that may not be the final answer, but it's run the equation, if you will, the rule set, and then bring your experts in to evaluate the result from your rule, okay? And you got to sit down and you got to write the rule with a clear mind, and then then you got to use the rule, okay? So to prevent your posse of proteges from becoming, or your advocacy from becoming a kind of collapsing to an old boys, a boys network, you're gonna have to put a rule in place that says, okay, let's evaluate my group of proteges against some criteria, okay? And we can't legislate that, right? We can't make that a law or anything like that, but we can certainly talk about it as a goal and a rule set that you might want to adopt in your own way. But so this allows us to discuss ways to get after this in groups like this. And just be mindful about that, right? Hey, if you look out there and everybody looks like you, you may not, you didn't think about your rule, or you're not applying your rule, right? And so, or things like you. So I think that kind of an algorithm, and in remarkably subjective areas, right? These human behavior, like marriage counseling. Right? How many of you guys are married out there? All right, okay. How many of you? Yeah. All right. So it's complicated, right? And even in those areas where it's all about human interactions, there's one thing, I think it's in Kahneman's book, where he talks about they got the world's best marriage counselors in, and they ran them through, a bunch of relationships. And each of them had to predict which ones would last and which ones wouldn't. And against that, they had just a little formula, and I'm not going to bring it up here, but and the formula beat them all, right? And so there's power in there of a rule set that allows you to, fight against that natural tendency. Okay, all right, sir.
Thank you for being here and for standing up the College of Leadership and Ethics. We met at lunch. I'm Michael Shiner, a faculty member. So the leadership development framework, I'm thrilled about it. And I think, as I said at lunch, your investing in this is about the best thing that could happen for the Navy. Then there's the knowing-doing gap.
Yeah.
And people know that by a lot of different words. And in particular, psychological safety on teams, which I know is embodied in trust, and speaking up. These are great goals, but they make demands, not just on our unconscious biases, but also all of our different capacities to actually do that. And I advocate for these things and fail at them every day.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you have thoughts about that.
Yeah, well, this is an area where, I think there's a statement in here. Well, it's in the, I think it's in the design, which I don't have a copy here, but it talks about just that idea, that concept, which is, sometimes in solving a problem, the best idea might come from the most junior person or inexperienced person, right? You just have to create a venue or a climate where it's not only safe, but I think as a leader, if you want to get to that, you're going to have to stimulate it and draw it out, right? You're going to have to commit actively to doing that because it won't happen on its own. And depending upon, what leadership position you're in, you may have to work harder in some than in others, right? And so, I guess that's about as good an answer as I have for it. You're just going to have to say, okay, as you put your plan for the day or as you get ready to go into any particular meeting or evolution or whatever, how are you going to draw out contributions from, some of the junior members of your team and reward those things, and all of that so that over time you achieve that climate where everybody's ready to pile in and contribute. Yeah. It's hard, though. It's really hard. So nobody wants to talk to the CNO. Okay. There's the Senior Enlisted Academy. Where are you? Okay. Were you guys sworn to silence before you came in here? Or, yeah. Then to you.
Good afternoon, sir. Chief Philip Fong. The question is the School of Leadership and Ethics, is that going to be available to the enlisted? And if so, where can I sign up?
Yeah, I think yes, right? It's everybody. We have this, in fact, Master Chief Koshover over here. I'll tell you, in fact, here's the degree of commitment to that. One of the things in version 1.0 was that I had a chance to talk with all of the community leaders, of all the different tribes in terms of, hey, tell me about your officer and enlisted leader development programs. And one of the conclusions, the kind of consistent conclusions, was that the character lane needed strengthening in both, but particularly in enlisted. And so there's a deliberate effort to cover down on that. So you're in, right? You don't have to sign up. You're already on the list, okay? Okay, good. Thanks. Back here.
Senior Chief Stacy Ketzbeaver. As you know, sir, we are a service of traditions. The cover for the female chiefs and officers are being phased out in October of 2018. Is it possible that we can have it extended once again so that it phases out with the new choker whites being in January of 2020?
So we just do one fell swoop? I'll take
Yes,
that.
sir.
I'll take that back, senior. Okay, but this is not a matter of if, but when. Okay, so I'll give that a good look. How about that? Okay. All right. Any other questions? How are we doing for time? Yes, sir.
Sir, OS2.
Sir, is there an OS in the house?
So you mentioned a lot about the leadership and ethics course, and obviously this is the Naval War College, and it's a very senior command. But you mentioned briefly about the junior enlisted personnel.
Yeah.
And plans, schools for the junior enlisted personnel in the Navy.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could touch on that.
I'll tell you what, Master, if you want to just say a few words about this, you're the architect of this. I mean, I could do it, right? Because we just talked about this for a couple hours in my office last week or so. But I don't want to take credit for Master Chief Koshopper's good work here. So you want to try this? All right.
So you know that was not a plant. I had no idea that was coming.
I have never met the OS2.
Yes, sir. Yeah, following the release of your initial framework, MCPON stood up a working group. We got a group of master chiefs together. We analyzed exactly what we've been talking about here. What is the gap in character and ethics discussions and enlisted development. Also, our formal schools are very much unit delivered, had kind of atrophied over time. So we presented to him a process and a plan to reinvigorate that. Went brief through CMP all the way up to CNO, and we've got a commitment for some funds to get out on the road for some train-the-trainer aspect. We've developed new curriculum that we're hoping to launch next year in January of 2019. And the lineup of courses is much improved. Heavy focus on character ethics. It'll be delivered by the Chiefs Mess. And we have a commitment to even grow NLEC by, can I give them a number? 90 billets, which is about $42 million investment in enlisted leader development. So I'm still looking to pick up the big check. I feel like a lottery winner, but we're making strides. The prime mover will be the Chiefs Mess. And your question is well timed. We're right at the cusp of launching all of this, and you should see some messages, emails, and media coming out. Kind of wanted to let all this come out first and then phase it in. So we're working on it, and investing in enlisted leader development isn't just a dream anymore. It's a reality. So there you go.
Okay. Fair enough. The reason I asked Master Chief, how many of your team are here? I see.
We've got Master Chief Terrell
Yeah.
from the Senior Enlisted Academy, sort of co-joined on the working group, but it's a small team.
It's a pretty small team.
Yeah.
MCPON's there, and the Fleet Master Chiefs, and it's so much, more focused and relevant and real when they put it together, and that goes all the way up to, Chiefs initiation and all that. That season and everything is incorporated in this, from basically, our recruits all the way up to our Fleet Master Chiefs, okay? Kind of a career approach to this, which is the real power of the college. It allows us to take a career approach to this rather than just sort of an episodic thing. Okay, so the president's here. He wants to eat cake, like, in the worst way. and so this is the chance for one last question, I think. Yeah.
Yes, sir. OS2 Green. My question is regards to all the new changes with uniforms and testing. How would be the easiest and most effective way, would you say, in your opinion, to keep the newer sailors that are just coming in, or sailors have been in a few years like me, motivated enough to stay in instead of doing their 4 years and getting out? Because sometimes they get discouraged.
What discourages you?
Not me specifically, but friends I know. They.
Oh, yeah.
I I plan on doing a full career. I've done 5 and re-enlisted for 6 more. So a lot of friends, they see the new changes, and some have been just as long as me, and they're getting discouraged, and they're thinking of not staying in.
What changes are your friends talking about?
The way the testing is going, they see all these changes, how it used to be, and now they get
What type of testing?
The pre-qualification for they don't understand it fully yet, but they message me and they're like, hey, why is this happening? You know.
Yeah.
Or.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's the way. I mean, it's a complicated business, you know, running a Navy. And so tell your friends this. Yeah, we'll get the smartest people that we have, and we'll study it for a period of time, and we'll put out the very best plan that we can possibly put together, right? We owe you that. But even with all of that being said, we could get it wrong, right? And or we could maybe not get it all right. And so how do we correct that? Feedback is the key, right? And actionable feedback. And so we want to make sure, I want to tell you, from me to you and through you to all your friends, that we're open to feedback. And if you find somebody in your immediate experience that's not open to feedback, then drop me an email, and I can maybe help that out. And I'll tell you what, you just ask the question, hey, I don't understand this. And we owe you an answer that says, well, this is what we were after when we did this. And you can either say, okay, I get it, thanks for explaining that. Or, I'm still not sure. And then we can say, we're either not communicating right, or maybe we made a mistake. A classic example, right? Rating modernization, okay? Right? And so there was some feedback involved with that. And when we got that feedback, we found that we could preserve all the goodness of rating modernization and not have to take, do away with ratings, okay? So we reinstated all of that. And that was just one very visible example of responding to feedback. So tell your friends that's what we're about, okay? This is how organizations learn faster than their competition, is by having these conversations. It goes to the question or the comment over here, hey, how do you build that climate where everybody's welcome to speak up, right? And I do all hands calls a lot, and I get a lot of feedback in those, a lot of questions. And I'm always amazed by, one, how thoughtful the questions are, two, how kind of respectful the questions are. Not, like E5 to O10 respectful, but hey, we're all just here to get things right respectful, right? And there's a presumption or an assumption that, hey, it's just about the best idea, right? So let's go in with the assumption that we're just trying to be the most effective Navy to defend America as possible, and that's the only thing that matters, okay? So we'll be respectful of that. Where it gets to be less productive is if there's an assumption that somebody's trying to make it life difficult for me or something like that. That's not what we're trying to do, okay? So listen, we'll just kind of close on this, if you will, is that you all comprise the most effective and talented Navy, Army, Air Force, Marine Corps that we have ever had in the history of the nation. And by every measure of performance, human performance, you are that team. And you have a tremendous amount of choices, right? All of you, when you reached the end of your enlistment, when you got out of school, you could have written your check and gone anywhere in the world. And you chose to come to the United States Navy, come to your service, and you chose to raise your right hand and take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That deserves a tremendous amount of respect. It deserves total commitment from me to you, and that's what you've got, okay? And part of that commitment is building leaders that we will be proud to have out in front of our sailors and America's sons and daughters. It's been a delight talking to you about building those leaders today, and I look forward to talking to you more out in the lobby. Thanks very much.
So thanks, everyone. A couple special shout-outs. Thank you to Admiral Zellabor for joining us here today. Surface Warfare Officer School is here as well. NLEX, Senior Enlisted Academy. We've got a number of tenant commands from the Naval Station all here to see our great Chief of Naval Operations. I'd like to say thank you to the faculty and staff of this extraordinary institution, and thanks to all of you, the students who give us purpose and meaning in what we do. We're going to approach the theoretical limits of performance by allowing our CNO International Fellows to depart first, please, followed by our new College of Leadership and Ethics, please.
All right. We should give them just an applause if they leave, huh?
And if you would just give the CNO and I a 30-second head start.
Al Harley might need 30 seconds. I can do this in 10 seconds.